2 minutes, 16 seconds. No, that's not how short this review is. No, don't jump ahead to that time index. This is a retro game review of Combat for the Atari Video Computer System, also published as Tank Plus for the Sears Video Arcade. You're probably more familiar with these console units being referred to as the Atari 2600. Now, most online reviews you'll come across are going to have a thumbs up and down system, or a blank out of 5, blank out of 10, or whatever, or even a star rating, perhaps even a rankings list. And while I have experimented with these styles of reviews in the past, I end up disagreeing with my own opinion, just like a few months down the line. What you're going to get here is a brief overview, accompanied by my experience. And while the experience is my own personal one, you're permitted to have your own. I will try to address how I would have, or did in the event that I had the game in my youth, enjoyed the game in its early days, and address how it holds up today. Where does the sound and graphics contend with other games from the era and/or console? And most importantly, is it fun? Who can get enjoyment out of it all these years later? Before I dive into the game, I highly recommend you check out the Atari Archive YouTube channel. It's a channel I just can't stop recommending, and it's well researched with good production value, great research, well edited, and fantastically researched. I'll link that channel's combat video in the description below. It'll give you a better understanding of the time, the inspiration for the game, and the home gaming market of a bygone era. And a lot of good research went into it. I don't know the person/people associated with the channel. I'm just a big fan. Giving them the thumbs up right now, right here. If you find yourself buying game lots online, you inevitably end up with numerous cartridges of Combat. While the box art, manuals, and game labels may or may not have undergone multiple iterations, the gameplay is the same. This is not a cart to seek out. You'll get plenty of copies organically and accidentally if you find yourself collecting Atari 2600 games. As a pack-in title for a long time, these carts have a greater abundancy today than Amazon gift card offers, but not by much. Combat is a two-player simultaneous only game, which is really, truly going to hurt my experience of the game, as I'm a lone gamer without much opportunity to share the experience with another player. That said, it has some interesting aspects that I wish to get into. But first of all, the basics. The manual spells it all out for you. Of course, you probably have 17 copies of the loose cart, and none of the lots you received came with a manual. But to be honest, it isn't too necessary with a little experimentation. Quite possibly the most valuable page is the game select matrix, especially if you're looking for a specific playfield, game, style, or whatever, to go at it with your buddy. From tank to tank pong, invisible tank to invisible tank pong, biplane and jet fighters as well. Guided versus unguided missiles, machine guns, direct hit, billiard hit, open field sky, easy maze, complex maze, clouds. Certainly there's a combination that's right for you, and far too many for me to go into great detail while maintaining some semblance of brevity for this video. Console switches. For those familiar with the Atari 2600, the switch functions are quite standard. On-off turns the console on and off. Game select advances the game number, so you can pick out the one you want from that game select matrix I mentioned. TV type does what it was originally intended to do. Toggles between a palette for color TVs and one that's better suited for black and white sets, which were still relatively common when the game was first published in 1977. From there, you hit reset, and the game begins. An invisible timer of 136 seconds begins. After 2 minutes, the scores will begin to blink, alerting the players that the final seconds are upon you. A youthful experience. In my youth, this is a game I actually never owned as a youngster. It was readily available to play at the homes of many neighborhood kids, so I wasn't oblivious to its existence. I don't have very many memories of this game as a kid, but a few stand out, and I look back upon them with nostalgia and joy. These memories bring me back to a time with less responsibility, a youthful Evad with his whole future ahead of him, and time spent with friends I have long since lost contact with. It's not the game that I remember so much as playing back then, but the people and events I associate with that game that brings a smile to my face. Look. The game looks good, even by today's standards, in my humble opinion. It's still alright. It won't contend with modern games with graphics, understandably so, but even though it looks old, it still looks good. Okay, some orientations of some of the sprites are a bit grotesque, but for the most part, pretty much everything looks like what it actually is. As we dive into other 2600 titles in the future, we will find that this is not always the case. For the time, I feel this appearance was very acceptable, and if you compare it to pre-2600 home console games, it's very fluid and colorful. Early adopters of the 2600 probably experienced this game before any other 2600 titles. Notable exceptions would be Sears owners with an alternative pack-in, Target Fun, Air Sea Battle. But the appearance of Combat, in my opinion, should have really impressed them. The sound. It's fine. The hum of the engine, simple sounds for shots fired and hits registered. Nothing is overdone, and if I get into some specific future 2600 titles that get a bit obnoxious with the audio, Combat gets it right with the less is more approach. While I'm not ever going to personally rock out to this soundtrack, or even contemplate adding it to my playlist, it establishes the mood decently, and most importantly, does not hinder the gaming experience. Gameplay. It's great. It does not take long to adapt to the controls. The tanks move a little slow by modern standards, and by my preference as well, but it's fine. Directional motion is based on the pilot's point of view, however, so there is a brief acclimation period as up or left or whatever is reversed if your tank or aircraft is oriented 180 degrees from default. I'm not fussy about this. It wasn't too uncommon back in the day, and really once you play a game or two, the movement and controls feel natural. Other. One interesting aspect I would feel foolish to omit from this review is the collision detection. While in general it's pretty good, in the tank games it can take a bit to get accustomed to. Compounding on that realization is the collision detection that occurs while a tank is taking damage. You can actually get some pretty wonky sprite-to-wall interactions, including, but not limited to, some high-speed screen wraps. Undoubtedly, this was known during the playtesting period, and I can only imagine it was left in for one of the following reasons. 1. Fixing it was too complicated and/or put stress on the publish date timetable. Or 2. It's going to blow the minds of gamers in the late 70s, and actually it looks absolutely cool. The one-player experience. This game is meant to be played with someone, and as a result, the one-player experience suffers greatly. I have fond memories of playing this with friends back in the day, but it's very rare for me to have someone around with the consideration to play this game at the forefront of my mind. But a few things I did try to get some one-player enjoyment out of it. 1. A high score challenge. Simple, easy, no explanation needed. Okay, I'll explain. See how many times you can hit your unpiloted opponent, then try to beat that score. Visions of Skinner dribbling a basketball with one free arm while trapped under a stack of newspaper comes to mind here. 2. Invisible tank. Set number of shots, fewest misses. Invisible tank is interesting because you can't see yourself or your opponent until you shoot, get hit, or collide. But by setting a rule for yourself like, hey, I'm going to take 15 shots this game and try to minimize my misses, you set a unique challenge. While the opponent won't move in a one-player setting, you still have a difficult time knowing if you have a shot lined up or not. And wasting one to see your position and/or orientation is a critical decision when your hits percentage is on the line for this unofficial and completely arbitrary category. Trick shots. Sometimes it can be quite challenging to use the guided missiles function to snipe even an unmoving target. It seems to actually take quite a bit of finesse, and it's something that I have by no means whatsoever become a master at. Of course, all these options can be enhanced with a second player as well, but that's how I got some extra mileage out of my many, many combat cards while being a lone active participant in such endeavors. Relevance today. Of course, anyone with nostalgia for this game or is passionate about Atari will be happy to own a copy, and maybe even play from time to time. There's still fun to be had with this title by many. and its simple nature makes it a good pick-up-and-play game, assuming, as mentioned several times through this review, that you have someone to play with. Younger generations are likely to find it old, outdated, poor-looking, and poor-sounding. Claims I disagree with, but I can understand due to these subjective points coming down to a person's perspective. But I think anyone that is willing to give it a shot to get over these downsides can have a lot of fun with this still, even today. Overall, the look and sound are good. It's a fun game, but really, folks, get a player or two to join you for this. I think almost anyone can find fun in this game if giving it the opportunity. The difficulty switches to change shot distance and aircraft speed can help a novice be competitive against a master. But really, unless the skill division is drastic, even the newest of beginners can rack up a few wins against a more experienced player. Without any relevant RNG or rubber banding AI, the game is intrinsically able to partially equalize the playing field. Combat 216 said I just whooped your ass.